In this video, we're going to set up the facial controls for our character rig. All of these are just going to be basic bone dials like we've seen before, but we'll lay them out in different ways, customized to the features they're controlling. The real challenge here is going to be making the facial animations in our actions work in combination with the rotation controls, so the face looks right no matter which way the head is turned. Let's start with the eyebrows. There's going to be 2 dials for each eyebrow. I'll make a vertical one to control the height of the eyebrow, called right eyebrow height. Then I'll make a horizontal one to control the angle or pitch of the eyebrow, called right eyebrow pitch. Then I'll make the 2 controls for the other eyebrow. And let's make sure these aren't parented to anything. And bring the bone strength down to 0. Then I'm going to want to have the labels on for all of these controls. And then let's arrange them so that they aren't overlapping. Now we can start creating our smart bone actions. Oops, I'd better put angle constraints on these. The eyebrows don't have to move far, so we don't need a very big range of motion. And we also don't want the controls to be able to overlap at any point. Now we can set up that action. This is going to be a really simple one. We just need the whole eyebrow to move upward. Then we just need the action for turning the dial the other way to make the eyebrow move downward. Next, we need to make the same actions on the height dial for the left eyebrow. Okay, now let's set up the actions on the pitch control. When it goes down, we want the eyebrow to arc down to match. And when it goes up, the eyebrow arcs up. Then we need to do the same for the other eyebrow. So with that done, now comes the real test. Let's rotate the head to the front view and see if it still looks right. Not quite. Our eyebrows aren't symmetrical. Her right brow looks good, but the left one is a little off. So I need to go back to the actions on that eyebrow and see if I can do something different with how the control points move to make it look different in the front view. A lot of this is just guess and check. I'm going to set up keyframes on the main timeline with the head turned forward and the eyebrows up to make it easier to go back and forth to check how it looks. One thing that's useful to know is that if you have a control point selected while working inside an action, it will stay highlighted when you come out to the main timeline. That can help you identify what about the point is behaving differently than you expected. Okay, I've found an arrangement of points that looks right in both views. I think the key was that curve on the top point needed to extend over the course of the animation. So that's the eyebrows complete. Oop, though it looks like one of the eyebrows is behind the eye. So I'll just move that layer up top. And now they're good to go. Next, we're going to do the controls for her pupil positions so we can make her look in different directions. The 3/4 view makes this tricky because the perspective is a little different on each eye. But I've got a solution that will work pretty universally for any head angle. I'm going to make 3 dials. The first one is going to move the vertical position of the pupils. The second is going to move the horizontal position. And the third is going to be the pupil focus, which means how far apart the pupils are. And I better make sure those aren't parented to each other. And show labels. And angle constraints. Now I'm just going to set up the actions for each of those dials. The key is I'm moving both pupils by the same amount for each action. That isn't going to look right now in 3/4 view, but we'll be able to use the focus control to compensate for that. The focus control will bring the pupils farther apart or closer together. Again, always moving both pupils by the same amount. So once that's done, we use the controls in combination to point the eyes in any direction we want. Now for the eyelids. This is going to be pretty tricky because there are so many moving parts to account for. I'm going to start by setting up 4 bone dials. One for the top and bottom eyelid on each eye. Now I just need to add actions to all these dials that move the lid up and down. So there we go. With these 4 controls, we can create a bunch of different expressions. However, when we want to just do a simple blink, it would be a pain to have to move 4 controls. So I'm going to make a single separate control that can open and close both eyes at once. When I set up the actions for this bone, I can just use the other controls to put the eyelids in the position I want for a blink. And then I'll make an action for the other direction that opens the eyes wider. So that's a lot easier to use in most situations. Just know moving this control will override whatever the individual lid controls are set to, because the actions on this control directly animate those bones. So now, the moment of truth, let's rotate the head and see if it still works. And oh boy, that's pretty bad. Most of it's alright except the eyelash layer itself is super messed up. I had a feeling this might happen because the eyelashes are such a complicated shape, made up of so many control points. But I think I know a better way to handle this. Instead of making the eyelashes a complex shape like this, I'm going to replace this with a single stroke and use the line width tool to give it that tapered look. Then for the eyelashes that stick out, I'll make them out of simple separate shapes with just 3 points each. That looks pretty much the same, and it's going to be a lot easier to transform in a way that will behave predictably. However, I do now need to go through all the actions and reanimate the eyelash layer. Now on the other eye, I'm going to need to go even a step further. On this eye, it's a little trickier because the part of the lashes that stick out shifts from the inside to the outside during the turn. What I'm going to do is put the inside and outside lashes on separate layers from the line part of the lash. I'll make animations on each of those layers so that the outer lash grows out as the inner lash shrinks down during the turn. And the reason I want them on separate layers is so that I can go into sequencer view and then use the layer visibility settings on each layer so it's only visible during the time when it should be seen. That way we don't need to account for how the head turn action affects those shapes when they're not supposed to be visible at all anyway. It's just a little less to worry about. Now I need to reanimate this lash layer on all my actions. And then, just like we always do with hidden shapes, even for those lash shapes that have their visibility turned off, I still want to animate them so they're in the right position when they become visible. Okay, now when I use the head control, the eyelashes look a lot better. And they even work in the middle of a blink as well. So that means all our facial controls are working now. We can easily use these to put the head in any position we want and give her any expression. So the controls are all working now, but there's a little more we can do to keep these organized and usable. We'll put the final touches on our rig in the next video. I'll see you there.